group and Keller Williams Realty at the Real Estate Center of Illinois. And thanks for attending the webinar. We appreciate it. I'd like to introduce our panel here. It's, again, myself, Steve Littlefield. We have Joy Chapman. We have Clark Ahlden, and we have Scott Perkins. And I'll let those folks tell you what they do. Joy?
My name is Joy Chapman. I work with Illinois National Bank as a mortgage lender.
Great.
My name is Clark Ahlden with Clarco Home Inspections, doing home inspections for Chapman and the surrounding areas.
Well, and to the closer.
And I'm Scott Perkins, and I am a real estate attorney here in Champaign County.
Great. We're going to go ahead and go with some of the questions, and we got somebody out here in front that's letting us know what some of those questions are.
What's the first?
Someone was wondering why you, Steve, if you could answer this as a realtor, why should someone list with an agent rather than list for sale by owner?
Karen, that's a great question, and we certainly, when we talk to folks, we understand why originally they may think that that's the right move. Here's what we've found, though, is that National Association of Realtors has done a study that typically for sale by owner, selling their home for anywhere from 14 to 16% less than what a realtor using professional marketing and the tools that we have available to us to get your home sold. A second thing I always talk to people about is when you're on the market as a for sale by owner, let's face it, buyers are savvy out there today. They know exactly what you're trying to do. They're trying to save the commission, and at that point, then they are when they start the negotiation, they're certainly going to take that in accordance about the what their offer is. So really, if they come in with an offer 10 or 12% below, have you really saved anything at all? Actually, you probably haven't, but now you've gone to the expense of advertising, you've gone to a lot of different expense, and so really what we've seen is it's better off to use the professionals in the marketing of your home. So.
Clark, do you have any, or Scott, you do some for sale by owners as the attorney. Like, is there any big stuff that you see, complications for sale by owner transactions when they only use an attorney and not a real estate agent?
There's definitely a lot more hiccups in the process. The legalities of it, a seller technically can do it, but the seller's lost and they're continually asking questions. How come people aren't looking at my house? Well, they made a verbal offer, people get all excited, whereas the buyers are not really vetted on for sale by owner transactions. They don't think of asking whether or not the buyer's been pre-approved through their lender. So again, the process, as Steve said, does seem to not only be such that buyers may not be able to successfully negotiate as well as they think, sellers may not be able to negotiate as well as we think, and a lot of times sellers will come to me and say, I want to sell for sale by owner, and 60 or 90 days later they said, no one's had a nibble, why don't they? I suggest listing, and then sometimes as little as 2 days after listing the property that's been for sale by owner for months and that they are under contract right away.
Great.
Joy, there's a question for you. Wondering, how does someone get pre-qualified to purchase a home?
So getting pre-qualified is actually very easy. It's just a matter of a short amount of your time. A lot of times, depending on questions and responses, we can do it in as little as 20 minutes. It's really about getting in touch with us, having a conversation with us. We get some information from you, talk about salary, talk about what your current outstanding debts are, and we are able to evaluate that very quickly and look to see what you would be able to get pre-qualified for. It's actually a very simple process.
I'll tag on to that, Joy. We always suggest that home buyers, whether it's their first time or their 150th time, get pre-qualified so that you know when you're going out to look at a home what you can afford. There's nothing worse than maybe looking at a house and all of a sudden you find out that maybe it's just a little taller price point than what you can do, and then all of a sudden we've got a lot of disappointment in that. So we always suggest that folks get pre-qualified prior to going out and looking for homes.
Absolutely, and it's beneficial on every level, not only for the buyer, for the agent, but also for the sellers too. It allows them to take offers more seriously when you have the letter showing that you've met with someone and you have been pre-qualified for the loan. So it gives you a little bit more power behind giving an offer on a house to show that you've been pre-qualified for that house.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Clark, a question for you as a home inspector. Why should someone have a home inspection on their home?
Well, I think having a home inspection is a great opportunity for the individual to learn as much as he possibly can about the home he's considering buying. You know, and the inspection is going to provide the client with a list of deficiencies or perhaps issues that need to be addressed immediately, or perhaps a list of issues that they can look forward to, you know, in the future. So regardless, you know, it's a good opportunity for the buyer to learn as much as he can about the investment that he's about to make, he or she is about to make.
Hey, Clark, quick question. How many, and I know we do this every once in a while, how many pre-inspections? So in other words, somebody's about ready to put their house on the market. How many people, or what's your thought on a pre-inspection?
I think a pre-inspection is good. You know, in Trey and I, we just kind of had the same conversation here a few days ago. I think a pre-inspection is great. However, people have to remember that a pre-inspection is from the seller, and, you know, and not from the buyer. But it gives the seller the opportunity to address perhaps some issues that's going to come up in any home inspection, and so they can get that taken care of before that home goes under contract. When it's a push to get it done.
Sure. And one thing I will piggyback on that. One thing we have noticed is that when the homes are pre-inspected, it gives you a chance to get those things taken care of.
That's right.
Prior to maybe even hitting the market. So when somebody is looking at your house, you don't have those maybe 5 or 6 or 10 little items that need to be addressed. You've already addressed them, or maybe you choose not to address 1 or 2 of them. That's fine. When somebody goes to make an offer, they know what they're dealing with, and the offer certainly becomes more solid, and there's a little less indecision on that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And you know, many times it's not a big cash outlay to repair some of this stuff, but it sure can be a turnoff, you know, to a potential buyer when, especially when there's several issues that need to be addressed.
Great.
Scott, a question for you. Why should someone use an attorney when they decide to buy or sell a home?
That's a great question, Karen. On the selling side, the role of an attorney is to order the title commitment. We prepare the deed and the documents of conveyance for transferring title between a seller and buyer. We also prepare settlement figures on behalf of the seller to provide the title company, and we're there to kind of navigate the client through the entire transaction. A lot of times issues arise, and we are out there as part of the risk mitigation. Same thing on the buyer side, we provide a lot of risk mitigation. We independently review title commitments on behalf of buyers to see if there's any liens or encumbrances that would make title unmarketable. We assist buyers with any issues that result from inspection, providing buyers advice on how to take title to a property. And something as simple as taking title could make the difference between whether or not a couple loses their marital home in the event that the judgment creditor files a lawsuit against them. So really, it's the biggest investment that anyone makes in their time of life, so it's really preventative medicine. And sometimes you may think a transaction is going to go through perfectly smooth, only to find out that an issue arises at the last minute, and it's always the party that does not have an attorney that's at a distinct disadvantage at that moment.
Yeah, I agree. I just tag along with that, Scott. Is I always tell folks, I say, this is like what you said, one of the largest financial moves that you may make in your lifetime. And why wouldn't you have one more layer of professionalism and protection with you at that time? It's such a minute investment to make sure that transaction goes through the way it should, and that you're not maybe 4, 5, 6 months down the road all of a sudden getting a phone call if you didn't have legal representation that, oh, something's wrong, and now you've got to unwind that whole thing. And hopefully there's not a lawsuit there.
Yeah, and sometimes unwinding, not only is it much more expensive, sometimes it cannot be unwound after the damage is done.
Yeah, I agree.
Joy, we have a question in for you from Sarah. Is it always required to put down 20% towards a mortgage loan?
That is a common question, and it is not always required to put down 20%. There's actually a lot of programs out there right now that can require as little as 3% and in some circumstances 0% down on a loan. They're really in the market to help people that are in a position of being a first-time home buyer, and even people who have already purchased a home before but for whatever reason haven't been able to save the money. They can sometimes put as little as 5% down. So it really is best to speak with one of us and for us to kind of sit down with you and go through all your options and let you know the different scenarios that you have available to you.
Steve, a question for you from Kyle. Why Keller Williams? There's many options in Champaign-Urbana. What is it that you offer that differs from anyone else?
Well, I think if you're talking the Keller Williams brand over some other brands, I think our distinct advantage is we are a profit-sharing company, and so any of the profits that are made go back to the agents that help us within the office that are selling real estate. So really, when you're hiring an agent at Keller Williams, is that you're really hiring the whole office, because if the office makes money and profit shares, then everybody is included in that, the ones that were helping us. So I think we have a distinct advantage. That's my personal opinion. We have a distinct advantage over the rest of the marketplace. As far as the Littlefield team, I think in all fairness, we bring a lot to the table. We're bringing 8 full-time members on our team, 2 admin that are always here working full-time, 6 agents. I think we're a size of team that we're large enough to service all your needs. Still allow, if people need to be out of town for one reason or another, that if your house or if you're listed with us or you're a buyer with us, that somebody's always there to watch out for your best interest. We're also not so big to be, in my opinion, that you're not a number. We certainly understand this is a large purchase, and we want to try to make this as smooth and as stress-free as possible. Now, I'm going to tell you, there's always some stress in whether buying or selling real estate. But our job, and I think we do an excellent job at it, our job is to make this as smooth as possible. And that's why we actually surround ourselves with professionals like these folks right here to make your transaction that much better and easier. So, great question.
Perfect. Clark, another question came in for you from Adam. There's a lot of inspectors here in Champaign County. Why should someone use you?
That is a good question. And you know, and I think the answer, I always give the same answer. I have always prided myself in the fact that I will take as much time as necessary to answer questions that buyers have. Many times it's my clients may be a first-time home buyer that have absolutely no idea of the mechanics of a home or what they're even getting themselves into. And so I've always tried to take the time and explain firsthand the deficiencies or something that may not even have anything to do with the report, but they just have questions about home ownership, you know. And I'm always amazed about how many people still don't know where to turn off the water supply to their house or where to shut off the electricity to the house. And these are just some things I like to take the people by the hand and just show them firsthand of where all these things are that they will need to know in the future. So, great question.
I'll give Clark a little kudos here. Clark does a home inspection with what I call common sense. Clark looks at a house and talks to you and will tell you about the house in ways that you can understand, that it makes sense to you. Clark's not there to beat the house up. He's there to find out what is right and what is wrong and inform you of that. But Clark's just a common sense type of home inspector, and I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, and one other thing too, I just want to throw this in there because there's so many people that believe that when they're going to get the report, they're going to get a stamp from me that says it's approved or, you know, it's denied or whatever, and that's not the case at all. You know, what home inspection is just to make you aware of some of the issues that are going on with the home, and in many cases, it's up to the potential buyer then to figure out how important those issues are to them, you know? And, but that's something that is asked quite often. Great question.
Scott, here's a question for you. What is the most common conflict that you see come up in a real estate transaction?
Well, Karen, all real estate transactions are unique, so they all bring about their own set of circumstances. But one thing that's common to most conflicts that occurs in real estate is the fact that people don't always understand both their duties and rights under the contract. Lots of people, whether it's what personal property items stay, whether or not a seller is obligated to fix an item in a post-inspection request, whether or not the buyer has complied with their financing contingency, it all really boils down to what are the rights and responsibilities of the respective parties to the transaction. And unfortunately, sometimes buyers and sellers try and ask their real estate agent or their lender to play an attorney. And it's not really fair to them to put them in that role. And it's really our job as the attorney to educate our clients on both their rights and the responsibilities under the respective contract. And that's probably what occurs the most in common, although very specific issues behind it, but it all really relates back to what are the parties' rights and obligations under the contract.
Joy, here's another question for you. How can someone go about buying a new house without selling theirs at the same time, so that way they have the time to move and or not be homeless for a short while?
That's one of the things that often creates the most stress for people, is to try to think about selling and buying in the same day. And, you know, we definitely would like to take away that stress if at all possible. If that is definitely something that you're concerned about, I would suggest coming in and talking to us. We do have a couple programs available that would allow you to use the equity in your current home to pull from and put down on the new house and give you that extra 2 to 3 weeks that would allow you the time to get moved, go back, clean, and take away some of the stress factor.
And I guess I would add to that, that's one of the legal conflicts that we have come into my office quite often. Seller either asks to be able to stay in the house after closing so they have time to move out, or a buyer asks to move in early. And it's really these early and delayed possession agreements that come in again and again and again. Whereas maybe if a potential buyer would come and talk to someone like Joy and work through the options, we could avoid that issue altogether.
What problems happen if they do, early possession or anything like that?
Well, you've moved a buyer into a house that they don't own. Questions in terms of if there's any type of incident, would the buyer's insurance cover it because they're not the owner of the property? Would the seller's insurance agent cover it because they have insurance based upon the fact that it's owner occupied and it's really a short-term rental at that point? What happens if the deal doesn't close? Now you have someone in there that's equivalent of having squatter's rights in the property. And if they tear up the property or they refuse to move out and say, well, give me another week until we close. So there's a whole set of legal and practical issues that ensue anytime we have early or delayed possessions. Sometimes it works out fine, but again, we're in the job of kind of playing devil's advocate, and we have several instances where the best scenario doesn't always occur, and we do have to prepare for the worst sometimes.
Joy, we had a question come in from Jordan. What is the first step, or sorry, this would actually be, well, kind of both of you actually, Steve or
we'll
Joy.
tag team it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tag team this one. What is the first step for a first-time home buyer? I kind of started answering. Listening it to Joy.
You start it.
So I'll start it. I really think that the first part of the process should be to come in and talk to a lender. Let us sit down with you. You know, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is really, and in essence, because we partner with realtors all the time, we understand what that next part of the process is going to be, and we like to talk with our first-time home buyers especially and give them a little bit of guidance of what they can expect. You know, we work with them, we get them pre-qualified, and kind of give them what's going to happen next after they've met with their realtor, when they find that perfect house, when they finally get a contract written up. Not only where the realtor will take it from there, and I'll let Steve take that in just a second, but then from us to, once we receive that contract, how we proceed from that standpoint. And I think that's it really is a partnership at that point. Not only between the realtor and the lender, but also between the buyer as well, and making sure that we all communicate and are able to walk that process together.
Absolutely. I think from a real estate standpoint, one of the best things that we do as a team is we want to have a buyer consultation. Whether this is your first house or, again, you bought 150 of them, let's come on in here and let's spend about an hour going through your needs that you really do have, and let's talk about those. Our whole goal is buying a house is a process of elimination, and there are over 1,000 homes out there for sale right now, and nobody wants to look at 1,000 homes because your mind goes to mush. So our goal is let's narrow down really what you do need and want in a home through our buyer consultation, and at that point now we can serve you better. It's a better use of your time, it's a better use of our time, and also, hey, we've got to think about the sellers too as we're going through their home. So absolutely a buyer consultation, I think, is from a real estate standpoint, as far as on the agent side and on the buyer side, is the absolute first stop. And well, actually, we're kind of both first stops.
Yeah.
But the consultation is so important. And you may think you're burning up some time by being here for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour, but it truly isn't. You just bought yourself a lot of time and actually probably buying yourself the opportunity to get into a better house that's going to fit your needs. So
That's right.
Yep.
And to tag on to that too, there's a lot of times that we're more than happy to partner and make an appointment within the same time frame as the realtor, so that it's really an easy, you have an hour and a half, 2 hours where you can meet with the lender, you can meet with the realtor, and then you feel secure that you're really on your way forward of being able to get settled and buy that house. So
Great green line.
Clark, we have another question for you. What is the most common deficiency you see in a home inspection, and why is it important to fix it?
Probably the most frequent deficiency that we have always found, and that is not properly diverting water away from the foundation. And more times than not, it's as simple as adding gutter extensions, or gutter extensions that may be laying next to the house that are disconnected. If you have a crawl space or a basement, and you can almost guarantee over time it will find its way in. So that's probably the most frequent.
I tell people, Clark, water's not your friend. Or rainwater is not your friend.
When you're on vacation, yes.
Yeah.
Being a homeowner, no.
Well, I can't tell you how many houses I've seen that if they would have just done what you said, how much money they've spent to correct by just not keeping the gutter extensions on, which is really doesn't cost you a thing. It's just more. You just want to make sure they're on there.
Yeah, and many times they'll say why they're not on there. They said, you know what, we get tired of mowing around. and so we take them off, and then we put them back on. We take them off, we put them back on, and pretty soon we take them off, and we don't put them back on. But I tell you what, anymore they've made it real easy. You can buy gutter extensions now that hinge, that swing. You can do, so it's not a question of having to disconnect anything when you mow. It's just a question of flipping it up against your house and flipping it back down when you're done. So, but extensions are very important.
There you go.
So kind of for all of you, if you want to go one by one or just raise the hands, is there anything that hasn't been asked that you think is a key item for a buyer or a seller to know in today's market? Or to expect?
Scott?
I think really people need to look at the entire team of professionals that they're working with. Choosing local, choosing people that do this day in and day out. Too many people dabble. There's real estate agents that dabble. There's lenders that say, well, we really don't do residential lending, but we'll consider it. There's attorneys that say, I really prefer to do traffic matters, but I'll handle your real estate. There's some inspectors that really aren't licensed inspectors that say, well, I'll go out and take a look at the home for you. It's really just making for certain that you put together that whole team of professionals, because we all have a vital component in the transaction, and it goes so much smoother when people just utilize people that are local and people that are really professionals in what they do.
That's good.
Yeah, that's great. Joy, you're next.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know that there's anything to say. I mean, there's always questions when it comes to lending, and there's no way to answer them all. But I think, especially as I sat here and listened to everyone tonight, the one thing that I wanted to touch on is we kept talking about how stressful the process can be for first-time home buyers. And I just want to tag in, it's not always the first-time home buyers. Some people feel that stress in every purchase transaction or selling transaction that they do. And it really is, as Scott said, key to who you choose to do that transaction with and making sure that you have a good relationship with that person. That really is the key. You want someone that's going to have open communication with you, and not only that, but is willing to have open communication and a partnership with everyone involved in the transaction to make sure really your best interests are at heart. And that's what it boils down to, in my opinion.
Clark?
Well, you know what, for me, when it comes to like with investments and stuff, you know, I never like to shoot from the hip, and you know, and I think that is kind of the best advice that could give someone who's looking to buy a home. You know, kind of have your ducks in a row, know who your attorney's going to be, and where you think you're going to get the money from, and the realtor picked out this and that. So when something comes up, you can act on it. And real estate, I don't think is a real good way to, or a place to be shooting from the hip. And I think, and not only that, when I go to bed at night, I like to be able to close my eyes. And you know, having 1,000 things rolling through your mind all the time is not a good place for me to be anyway. And so that's why I like to have it all laid out.
And I like what Clark said earlier about educating our clients. I mean, that's a big part of it is, if you hear from your inspector, your realtor, your lender, your attorney, well, that's just the way it is. That's not an acceptable answer. I mean, we're all groups that like to educate our clients so they not only understand the answer, but the whys behind it. And again, whether it's a first-time buyer, if it's someone that buys every year a property, if it's someone that hasn't bought a property in 30 years, just being able to get that level of comfort and interaction between the client and the professional, and that makes the transaction go a whole lot more smoothly.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll wrap it up. I think it's key, just like the four of us up here, and I want to thank these three for joining us, because it is a big deal. Surround yourself with good people. A real estate transaction is a huge financial transaction. Surround yourself with good people, and those good people, if they've been there doing this long enough, the one reason they're still in business is because they are good. So surround yourself with good people, because they've got teams, and this is just part of a real estate transaction right here. I think it's a pretty big part, but there are other pieces to the puzzle. And good folks will have the right people around you that's going to protect you, and I think that's the ultimate thing. I always tell people, my job is to make sure that I protect you, to get the house that you want or sell the house that you want to sell, but in the meantime, we want to make sure that everything is going smoothly and that you're protected. So I just think it's important to surround yourself with good folks. So
to kind of end it off,
okay.
Can you guys, starting with Scott and go down, tell people how they can reach out to you? State your name again,
great.
and the best way to contact you if they would like to talk with you some more.
Certainly. Again, my name is Scott Perkins, and you could reach me either by telephone at 217-582-8069 or via email at sperkinslaw@gmail.com.
Clark Ahlden, Clarco Home Inspections. You can reach me at 217-840-8436. My website, let me see if I get this right now. www.clarcohomeinspections.com.
I think that's right.
I think so.
Joy Chapman with Illinois National Bank. You can reach me on my phone at 217-530-4352 or at jchapman, that's C-H-A-P as in Paul, M-A-N, at illinoisnationalbank.com.
Great. And I'm Steve Littlefield with the Littlefield Group. Best way to reach us is either give me a call at 217-202-7950, or our website is littlefieldhomes.com. Or we have another site that actually I think is better, which is Central Illinois. HomeSearchIL.com. We've got several sites. HomeSearchIL.com, and actually a great site that if you want to start looking for homes, log in right there, and that's where you can go. But thank you so much for being here. The questions were awesome. Let us know if you liked this. If you did, we may continue this. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being here, and good night.
Good night.
Thanks.